Have you ever stood in front of your bathroom mirror, hairbrush in hand, pretending you're headlining the biggest stage on Earth? Maybe you were 15, maybe you were 35. It doesn't matter. We've all had that private fantasy where the crowd is roaring, the lights are blinding, and for 3 perfect minutes, we are absolutely untouchable. But here's the thing nobody tells you about those fantasies. The real magic isn't in the performance itself. It's in what happens inside your brain the moment you decide to step into that light. Now imagine actually doing it, not in your bathroom, in front of 112 million people. Live, no do-overs. No, let me try that again. Just you, your art, and the invisible thread connecting you to every single person watching. That's exactly where Bad Bunny found himself during his Super Bowl halftime show. And if you think his strategy was just about singing catchy songs in 2 languages, you're missing the entire psychological masterpiece that unfolded on that stage. Let me take you back to that night for a moment. The stadium is electric. The week leading up to the game had been filled with whispers and speculation. Would he play it safe? Would he lean into the mainstream? Would he, as some predicted, water himself down to fit the NFL's traditionally conservative mold? And then he emerged, not as some polished pop commodity, but as something far more dangerous and compelling, completely, unapologetically himself. The cowboy hat, the emotional vulnerability, the seamless code switching between Spanish and English that mirrored how millions of us actually think and feel. It wasn't just a concert. It was a psychological case study in what happens when someone understands that authenticity isn't a buzzword, it's a neurological weapon. You see, your brain is constantly scanning for threats. Evolution hardwired us this way. Thousands of years ago, this kept you alive when a rustle in the bushes might mean a predator. Today, that same threat detection system fires when we sense someone is being fake with us. We might not consciously articulate it, but our amygdala, that almond-shaped anxiety factory deep in your temporal lobe, starts lighting up like a Christmas tree. We feel uneasy. We disengage, we scroll away. But when someone presents themselves with what psychologists call integrated authenticity, where their public persona aligns with their private values, something remarkable happens. Your brain's reward centers activate. Oxytocin, sometimes called the trust hormone, begins flowing. You feel seen, you feel safe, you lean in. Bad Bunny didn't just know this, he weaponized it. Think about the sheer audacity of opening with songs that weren't his biggest radio hits. In a world obsessed with metrics and algorithms, where every decision is data-driven and focus-grouped into oblivion, he chose emotional resonance over commercial safety. That's not just artistic courage, that's psychological intelligence. Research from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School has shown that when performers take what seem like risks that align with their core identity, audiences actually perceive higher value and develop stronger loyalty. It's counterintuitive, isn't it? We think playing it safe wins hearts, but our brains are actually bored by safety. We crave the edge. We crave the real. And here's where it gets really interesting. Bad Bunny's performance wasn't just about him, it was about you. Specifically, it was about your mirror neurons, those fascinating cells in your premotor cortex that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it. When he moved, your brain moved. When he felt, your brain felt. This isn't metaphorical, this is literal neuroscience. When you watched him transition from high-energy reggaeton to tender, acoustic moments, your nervous system went on that journey with him. You weren't just a spectator. You were a participant in a shared emotional experience. But let's dig deeper into the bilingual element, because this is where the psychology becomes almost poetic. Code switching, the practice of alternating between languages, does something profound to your brain. Studies from the University of Texas and other institutions have found that bilingual individuals who code switch are actually processing emotional content differently depending on which language they're using. Spanish might carry the weight of childhood memories, of abuela's kitchen, of first loves and heartbreaks. English might represent professional aspirations, global connection, modern identity. By flowing between them so naturally, Bad Bunny wasn't just being linguistically impressive. He was accessing different emotional palettes, different neural pathways, different versions of his audience's selves. He was speaking to the bicultural experience that millions of us live but rarely see validated on such a massive stage. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to perform a version of yourself that isn't quite real? Maybe at work, where you code switch in a different way, adjusting your vocabulary, your posture, your very essence to fit in. Psychologists call this emotional labor, and it's costly. It depletes your cognitive resources. It creates what researchers term identity dissonance, that uncomfortable gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. Now imagine doing that in front of a global audience. The temptation to perform a sanitized, palatable version of yourself must be overwhelming. But Bad Bunny did the opposite. He brought his contradictions front and center, the toughness and the tenderness, the party and the politics, the global superstar and the kid from Vega Baja. And in doing so, he gave everyone watching permission to embrace their own contradictions. There's a concept in psychology called the exposure effect, which basically means we tend to develop preferences for things merely because we're familiar with them. It's why pop songs grow on you, why that coworker you initially found annoying becomes endearing over time. But Bad Bunny's strategy inverted this. Instead of giving us more of what we already knew, he introduced elements that were unfamiliar to many in the mainstream audience. Bomba and plena rhythms, the specific cadences of Puerto Rican Spanish, visual references to island culture that might not have immediate recognition for everyone watching. Rather than triggering rejection, this novelty activated what neuroscientists call the seeking system, a dopaminergic pathway that lights up when we encounter new, potentially rewarding stimuli. He didn't just satisfy existing cravings, he created new ones. He expanded the audience's emotional and cultural vocabulary in real time. Consider the staging and visual psychology for a moment. The way he utilized space, the deliberate shifts between massive, stadium-filling energy and intimate, almost vulnerable moments, these weren't just aesthetic choices. They were regulating your nervous system. Trauma therapists often use something called pendulation, gently moving between states of activation and safety to help people process difficult experiences. While I'm not suggesting a concert is therapy, the principle applies. By taking you on that emotional roller coaster, by making you feel big feelings, and then giving you moments to breathe and integrate, he created a complete psychological journey. You weren't just entertained, you were moved through an experience. And let's talk about the hat, that white cowboy hat. In the context of Puerto Rican culture, it referenced the Jibero tradition, rural, working-class roots. In the context of American television's biggest stage, it referenced country music, heartland values, a different kind of working-class aesthetic. It was a visual bridge, a semiotic handshake between worlds. Your brain loves this kind of layered meaning. When you encounter symbols that operate on multiple levels simultaneously, your prefrontal cortex engages in what researchers call elaborative processing. You're not just passively receiving information, you're actively constructing meaning. You become a co-creator of the experience. That's engagement on a neurological level. But perhaps the most powerful psychological element was what he didn't do. He didn't explain himself. He didn't offer a preamble about why his culture mattered, didn't justify his presence with statistics about Latinx purchasing power, didn't translate every Spanish lyric for the English-speaking audience. He simply existed in his fullness and trusted that would be enough. This is what psychologist Carl Rogers called unconditional positive regard, not just for himself, but modeling it for his audience. The implicit message was, you are capable of meeting me here. You are capable of understanding without hand-holding. That kind of respect for your audience's intelligence is surprisingly rare, and your brain recognizes it as a gift. Think about the last time someone truly saw you, not the version of you that performs competence, or the version that apologizes for taking up space, but the messy, contradictory, authentic you. How did that feel? probably like an exhale you didn't know you'd been holding. That's what Bad Bunny offered on that stage. He was modeling something we all need to learn, that your wholeness is your superpower, not your limitation. The parts of yourself you think you need to hide, the accent, the cultural references that don't translate, the emotions that feel too big or too complicated, those are actually your connection points. Those are where resonance lives. Now, I want you to carry this forward into your own life, because that's really why we're here. You're not going to headline the Super Bowl halftime show. Probably. But you're going to have moments where you feel the pressure to shrink, to code switch into someone more acceptable, to perform a version of yourself that feels like a cheap imitation. When those moments come, and they will, I want you to remember what happened when Bad Bunny chose his truth over his safety. I want you to remember that your brain and the brains of everyone around you are actually desperate for authenticity. We're all so tired of the performance. We're all so hungry for the real. Bad Bunny's performance hit all three. He chose his artistic vision autonomously. He demonstrated competence not through perfection, but through genuine skill and preparation. And he created relatedness by being vulnerable enough to let us see him fully. This is the psychology of connection. This is the strategy that outlasts algorithms and trends. So the next time you're preparing for your own big moment, whether that's a presentation at work, a difficult conversation, or yes, even your bathroom mirror concert, ask yourself, am I performing safety or am I offering truth? Because here's the beautiful secret that Bad Bunny knows and that neuroscience confirms. When you offer your truth, you don't just liberate yourself. You give everyone watching permission to do the same. You create a ripple effect of authenticity that extends far beyond your moment in the spotlight. And isn't that what we're all really looking for? Not just to be seen, but to create spaces where others feel safe to be seen too. If this resonated with you, if you felt something shift while we were talking about this, I want you to sit with that feeling. Notice where in your life you're being called to show up more fully. And maybe, just maybe, drop a comment about a moment when choosing authenticity changed everything for you. Because we're all figuring this out together, one performance, real or imagined, at a time.